Public Health England have published guidelines for the food industry about reducing the amount of sugar in foods contributing most to children's sugar intakes by 20% by 2020. So we've produced guidelines for 9 categories of food, the top 9 categories of food providing sugar to children's diet, and that includes breakfast cereals, yogurts and fromage frais, morning goods, so things like pastries and buns, cakes, biscuits, confectionery and ice cream. We've produced 2 things. So we've produced guidance for the amount of sugar per 100 grams of product, and also produced guidance for average portion size reduction. We're looking for and set caps for portion sizes, and those are just intended for single-serve products. PHE are recommending 3 approaches to achieving the 20% reduction. This was actually all set out in the Childhood Obesity Plan. First of those approaches is straightforward reformulation, so that's cutting the amount of sugar per 100 grams of product. The second one is reducing portion sizes, particularly in products that we know people eat on a single occasion. So that's not necessarily the ones that are recommended for single consumption, but what we know is consumed on a single occasion. And also shifting the portfolio of products towards the lower sugar products. So if you take categories such as yogurts, we've given a guidance level for the amount of sugar to be in those products by 2020. And also we've set a recommendation for maximum single serving sizes in terms of calories. We've also, for the yogurts category, taken into account the naturally occurring sugars there in milk. We've excluded natural yogurts from the category because they are something a bit different than the flavoured yogurts. So Public Health England has spent since about May last year listening to stakeholders, and that includes the food industry, that's all sectors of the food industry, retailers, manufacturers and the out-of-home sector, and also to NGOs. About what these guidelines should look like. We've taken into account current levels of sugar in products and current portion sizes out there in single-serve products, and looked to what we think is feasible for a 20% reduction across each of the 9 categories. We've been through a consultation exercise with industry and NGOs where we actually made numeric proposals, and they had an opportunity to come back and comment on them, and we took into account those comments. We know that industry are already taking steps towards sugar reduction. We know that different parts of industry are going at different rates. Some companies are really leading the way, others are still thinking about it. Public Health England's job, though, is to do 2 things really. We are now here to encourage industry to go further and faster, but we're also there to monitor what goes on. We will advise government on progress against these guidelines, and if progress isn't made by 2020, then government will consider other levers for action. So we know our children are consuming 3 times more sugar than they should be, and that is affecting their teeth. Very obviously it's affecting tooth decay, but it's also affecting their obesity levels. Too much sugar increases the risk of having too many calories, which increases the risk of obesity. We have a fifth of our children arriving in primary school already overweight or obese, and by the time they leave, it's a third. That's a lot of children, and that will affect their future health because obesity increases the risk of type 2 diabetes, some cancers, and heart disease, really serious problems that are bearing down on our NHS. An obese child is also more likely to be bullied, and no parent wants to see their kid being bullied. So it's really important that our food environment, the food that is regularly sold, our everyday foods in our shops, are healthier, and a big step towards them becoming healthier is a reduction in the amount of sugar in the product. So the vision is that our children are enabled to have healthier diets by a healthier food environment, and that means significantly cutting the amount of sugar in foods and significantly reducing portion sizes as well. We've seen the UK food industry lead the world on salt reduction, and that was coming from health people saying please reduce the amount of salt in food because too much salt increases the risk of heart disease. And we've seen industry really embrace that. So our bread is now 40% less salty than it was 10 years ago. Most people haven't noticed, and that's been a great success of our industry. We know that companies that embrace sugar reduction are likely to reap benefits around the world because they're learning to change their products for the UK market. Other countries are talking to us now about the sugar reduction program. So we envisage that other countries will be asking of their industry to have lower sugar levels in their food. And our companies are multinational, so we would expect them to reap benefits by embracing this program early on.